May I ask Honorable Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Representative Michael McCall, to address the gathering.
Tashi Delay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank the members of the delegation. I also want to thank my beautiful wife, Linda, for being here as well. Thank you, Linda. I also want to thank the school children who performed. That was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And it demonstrates why we have to keep the Tibetan culture alive and well. There you go. All right, one minute. Nope. But they already kept my mic on? There we go. Let me just say it's an honor to be here today and to lead this bipartisan delegation from the United States Congress to meet His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. Like many of you, I wish this meeting was happening in your homeland of Tibet, but you were forced to flee 65 years ago after the Chinese Communist Party annexed Tibet and slaughtered tens of thousands of innocent Tibetans. The CCP was determined to end the Tibetan culture and forcibly bring the Tibetan people under their control. To save his people and his culture, His Holiness led more than 80,000 of his followers on a perilous journey, 4,000 kilometers through the Himalayas to safety. They left behind their homes, their friends, and even some of their family, all with the hope of preserving their way of life for future generations. Thanks to the kindness of the Indian people, His Holiness and his people are able to live freely here and practice their religion without fear of persecution. But it is still my hope that one day the Dalai Lama and his people will return to their home in Tibet in peace. Decades later, the Chinese Communist Party continues to threaten the freedom of the Tibetan people, and they have even attempted to insert themselves into the succession of the Dalai Lama, but we will not let that happen. Even after the violence and forcible removal from his homeland by the CCP, His Holiness continues to preach tolerance and peace and forgiveness. He reminds us that even if the CCP takes your land, they cannot take away your culture. They cannot take away your spirit. And they cannot take away what the Tibetan people mean to the rest of the world. Yesterday, I visited the Temple of Democracy here. You know, Chairman Xi says democracy doesn't work. But Chairman Xi is wrong. Democracy does work. For in democracies, people are free. Under tyranny, people are enslaved. Just this week, our delegation received a letter from the CCP warning us not to come here. They repeated their false claim that Tibet has been a part of China since the 13th century. But we did not let the CCP intimidate us, for we are here today. For the Dalai Lama knows that this is not true, that Tibet is part of China. And the people of Tibet know that that is not true. And the United States of America knows that that is not true. The Tibetan people possess a distinct religious, cultural, and historic identity. They should have a say in their own future. You should. And you should be able to freely practice your religion. And that is why we are here today in defiance of that warning. The timing of this visit couldn't be better. We are here just 1 week after the House of Representatives and the Congress passed the Resolve Tibet Act. This bill makes it clear the United States believes Tibet has its own unique language, religion, and culture, and has a right to self-determination. The bill also requires the State Department to aggressively challenge CCP propaganda about Tibet. So along with my friend Congressman Jim McGovern, who is also here today, and the author of the bill, I am proud to have sponsored this legislation, and I want to thank him for working with me to get this bill and Congressman Meeks on the committee to get this bill to the President's desk, where it will be signed in the coming days. In my private meeting with His Holiness, I presented him with wind chimes that play America the Beautiful. I told him that wind cannot be seen, but it is a powerful force that is always present. My hope is that this wind chime reminds him that even when our delegation leaves here, that America the Beautiful will support Tibet to remain a powerful force that is always present. You know, the Dalai Lama is a manifestation of the Buddha of compassion. It is said the original Buddha of compassion chose to reincarnate so he could continue to serve the people for generations. I see that compassion not only in His Holiness, but in all of you, the Tibetan people. So thank you for having us, me and the delegation here today. And let me close by saying, Tu Che Che. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCall. DJL Amrige Chozo Ome Tumi Kushab Gregory Meeks Chogasungshin and Q. May I ask Honorable Representative Gregory Meeks to address the gathering.
Tasha the League. It is great to be here with all of you. And I'm proud to be here today with my lovely wife, Simone. I want to thank the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Michael McCall, for leading this delegation. And it's especially an honor and a privilege to be here with someone that you all know, admire for her dedication, for her commitment to stand with you, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. And if I would be remiss if I did not also recognize an individual who is known in the United States Congress as an individual who's focused on human rights here and everywhere around the world, and the sponsor of this bill, Jim McGovern. As well as with all of my colleagues who have joined because of their commitment to you. Some have asked me, why did I make this trip? And I can answer in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Our voices have to be raised. Now, I've had the distinct honor to meet with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, early this morning. It is something that I will forever cherish. His wisdom, his optimism, and the face of darkness is something from which I will take back and learn and keep for the rest of my life. And so I'm here as the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm here with a bipartisan delegation to let you all know that in the United States Congress, we are together and we are paying attention, and our support for Tibetan people is unwavering. Now, I represent a borough in New York City called Queens, which is the home of the majority of Tibetan Americans in the United States of America. In fact, Jackson Heights, Queens, Mamos are a household word. They are so popular that if you ask a New Yorker where they come from, they may tell you Queens. Now, know that across the United States, there are scores of Tibetan Americans and friends of Tibet working every day to ensure that your dream for a better day remains alive. All of us, every single one of us, are deeply concerned by Beijing's growing campaign of repression against Tibetans in the PRC. We know that Beijing is separating Tibetan children like the children that's before us, from their families through its state-run boarding schools. We know that Beijing is forcibly relocating entire communities under the guise of economic development. We know that it is targeting and imprisoning hundreds of Tibetan activists, writers, artists, teachers, and clergy for simply exercising their fundamental freedoms. And we know that it is trying to co-opt and control Tibetan Buddhism, even as it restricts freedom of religion across the Tibet Autonomous Region and other Tibetan areas. So we are all here to call on the government of Beijing to immediately stop its countless abuses of the Tibetan human rights. It is time for Beijing to re-engage in dialogue without preconditions with His Holiness and his representatives to reach a negotiated resolution that leads to meaningful autonomy for the Tibetan people. And that is why I'm very proud to work with Representative McGovern and Chairman McCall and the State Department to pass the resolution that we passed. They're promoting a resolution to the Tibet-China Dispute Act, which passed both chambers of Congress last week in a bipartisan manner. So I want to end by again recalling some of the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who reminded us that the arc of the moral universe is long, but bends towards justice. That famous pronouncement has always been a driving source of hope for me. And my own experience has also demonstrated it to me. You know, my own family suffered in the United States, first by slavery and then Jim Crow and segregation. Yet here I stand before all of you today as the former who have served as the first African American chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, now ranking member. And so this is a special day. June 19th, very special and historic day for me, because in 1865, African Americans who had been enslaved, the last one in Texas, was notified that they no longer were an enslaved people, they were a free people. And why this day is so important is because I have hope for the Tibetan people. I know that you will all persevere for a better tomorrow, for your children and your children's children. You will persevere so that you can speak your own language, so that you can pass on the beautiful customs that I have been privileged to see today. And I look forward to the day when we can all say that Tibetans are free at last, free to return to their homeland of Tibet, free to practice their own cultures, free to be their freedoms, free to be who they are, and free to live their lives in dignity and peace and freedom and justice for all of the Tibetan people and for all of the world. God bless you all.